It's wild how some of you with no connection to Ireland will go all out to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, but suddenly have a problem when it comes to recognizing Juneteenth as a legitimate holiday. That contradiction says a lot more than you think.
I'll do you one even better. There's people out there that celebrate Cinco de Mayo every single year, but turn around and want to deport Mexicans. Then those same people will celebrate a Sweet 16 when that is a direct copy of a quinceañera. Then they'll look you dead in the eye and tell you that Juneteenth shouldn't be a holiday. These people will legitimately argue with you about a holiday that gives them a day off from work. That is some type of racism I just never thought about. And speaking of racists and racism, they sure enough enjoy the day off from work they get from Martin Luther King Day, what doesn't really correlate with the fact that they don't want Juneteenth as a federal holiday. It's not everyone, right? But y'all know exactly the people that I'm talking about.
The focus of my study and my public work right now is on white Christian nationalism. White Christian nationalism is the force behind much of what we are seeing in terms of anti-blackness, but also in terms of authoritarianism and anti-democratic principles.
Okay.
And so white Christian nationalism, as I define it, is an ideology that uses Christian symbolism as a permission structure for their true aim, which is the acquisition of political power and social control.
Okay.
So what they want to do is move us away from a multiracial, pluralistic, participatory democracy to a much narrower definition of who is truly American and therefore who belongs and who has power.
Let me tell you something most people in Britain have never heard about, let alone been taught. Britain didn't discover racism in the 60s. Britain had a nationwide race riot in 1919, over 100 years ago. And what happened after explains so much about why people from the diaspora still talk about conditional belonging today. And it's not opinion, this is documented history. Long before Windrush, Britain's port cities were already diverse. Places like Liverpool, Cardiff, South Shields and London. Black seamen from the Caribbean, Somalia and West Africa, Arab sailors from Yemen and South Asian Lascars working British ships. Historians like Ray Costello and Laura Tabili show that black maritime communities had existed in Britain for generations. They worked the docks, they powered the merchant navy, and they were essential to empire. Then World War I ended, and suddenly they were no longer useful. Post-war Britain was tense, jobs were scarce, housing was tight and wages were low. And white workers were told something you will recognize instantly: they're taking your jobs. Newspapers amplified it, politicians echoed it, and crowds, they believed it. And that's when the violence started. Riots broke out across the country, white mobs attacked black lodging houses and neighborhoods, men were beaten in the streets, and homes were set on fire. In Liverpool, a black sailor named Charles Wootton was chased by a mob into the River Mersey, and he drowned. This is detailed by historian Jacqueline Jensen in Black 19. Not myth, not exaggeration, recorded fact. But what the government did next is a part nobody talks about. Through repatriation schemes and the Coloured Alien Seaman Order, black and Arab men were reclassified as aliens and shipped out of Britain. Some had lived there for years, and some had British wives. Some had fought for Britain. As Laura Tabili writes in We Ask for British Justice, they were British when they were useful, foreign when they were invisible. This is why Stuart Hall says identity in Britain is something diaspora people have to negotiate, not inherit. Because from 1919 to Windrush, to the Race Relations Acts, to today, the pattern is still the same. Belonging becomes conditional when times get hard. So when people ask why conversations about race, identity and belonging still matter, tell them this didn't start in the 60s. It didn't start with Windrush. It was here in 1919. And the fact most people have never heard of it, that silence is part of the story too. Peace.
So did you know that white evangelicals didn't really care about abortion until they needed a new issue to organize around? So Roe v. Wade legalized abortion in 1973, but for the next 5 to 6 years, white evangelicals were mostly silent. The Southern Baptist Convention even passed resolutions in the 1970s supporting limited abortion rights. So what changed? In 1971, the IRS threatened to revoke tax-exempt status from racially segregated Christian schools. White evangelicals were furious and wanted to organize politically. But they couldn't organize around "we want to keep our schools segregated" because that was really unpopular by the late 1970s. So they pivoted to abortion. So by 1979, abortion became the issue for the religious right the moral majority founded. The religious right wasn't born to fight abortion. It was born to defend segregated Christian schools. Abortion was just the cover story.
This stolen from Africa. This stolen from Africa. This Louis Vuitton monogram was stolen from the Kwili tribe. Damier pattern stolen from the Kuba people of Congo. Something that is the standard in Africa is considered couture and high fashion in Europe. Don't piss me off, okay? We have been taught to believe that fashion begins in Paris.
You're a liar and you're a cheat.
That craftsmanship has been perfected and mastered somewhere in a European city.
The lies! There you go, this bitch. I'm telling you.
Let me tell you something. Long before fashion houses, long before runway shows, African societies were literally weaving identity into cloth. Weaving systems so complex they communicated your religion, your social status, spirituality, your lineage without a single word even being spoken. What? Tell me that that's not power. In Africa, handmade isn't used as a marketing tool. Handmade is the standard. Clothes are shaped by the human hand. In Europe, those same hands are used to justify higher price points. So when I'm telling you African clothing is couture, for something to be considered couture, it's got to be made to measure. Everything in Africa is made to measure. It's got to be handcrafted artistry. Beading originated in Africa. Embroidery work originated in Africa. We've always respected things that take time to create. You cannot tell me that this is not couture. You cannot tell me that this also is not couture. Some of the most conceptually rich, technically brilliant, and emotionally empowering clothing is coming out of Africa. European fashion has been placed on such a high pedestal. It has been placed as the authoritative voice within fashion, and yet we're expected to treat African fashion as just a reference point when it is the foundation of everything. This video is not about asking for recognition. It's about correcting the story, about highlighting the disparities and the double standards.
Because, you know, I tell people all the time, like, white people don't look happy. They don't look like happy to be here. Now, on paper, they have everything.
Right.
And then in an argument, they'll tell you they're better at everything and they're the priority, they're the default. But can't achieve like genuine and true joy and happiness. And oftentimes it only seems as if their happiness comes off the backs of others suffering, right? But in the midst of us like being used as free labor, we had a thing called a laughing barrel, where it's like just to hide our laughs. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, the environment doesn't dictate anything to laugh about, but that just show you like how unserious we are.
Say it with me now. I refuse to do anything in this life that would have brought a slaveholder from the antebellum South any kind of joy. Happy Black History Month.
When white women be like, who set that system up? I always find that video to be comical because it's like, your husband. Like, what the fuck are we talking about right now? Like, the person you're married to, the kids, the boys that you choose to have. Your son set up that system. Your husband, your dad, your uncle, your grandpa. And guess who's right there beside him? You. What the fuck talking about? Like, oh, who set that system up? Literally your ancestor, bro. What, like, the fuck you mean you're second in command? Like, huh? Who set that system up? I'm afraid you live with him. Like, the enemy is closer than you seem to think. Y'all be marrying them and feeding them and having their kids and raising them demons and then be like, who set that system up? Quite literally you upheld that motherfucker. Like, what are we talking about? Like, bruh, you are literally the co-pilot of this operation. Like, you sat there didn't say shit and just accepted all of it while reaping the benefits of being like a stay-at-home mom or a mom that doesn't have to pay bills. Like, you chose to be complicit because it made your life easier, even though you are still oppressed in this situation. And guess what? You have 4 fucking boys to boot. So congratulations. Welcome to your personal hellscape of the patriarchal system that you benefit from. Like, it makes no sense. I'll never forget, I saw a video on here where there was a white woman was like, we just fuck white men to get them to leave us alone. And you don't think that's the problem? You give them motherfuckers kids, you give them Gucci, and they think that that shit is okay because you choose to give it to them, and then wonder why the system repeats itself. They don't think it's a problem because you throwing that ass on conservative cock.
Every day, I get a better understanding as to how Africa was colonized. Which African country is going to claim that dance? That flailing around, the jerking and shaking like she was a chicken. Which cultural dance is that? Why do we applaud mediocrity? Why? You know who I blame? I blame this guy. I even blame the band because they're part of this. This is not sharing culture. This is your interpretation, your sick, colonized version of what you think traditional African dance is. Flailing around the place like you've lost control of your limbs, all while being applauded.
My thing is, people from Asia wouldn't generally take someone else's version of humanity. African people seem to take other people's version of humanity from other people, even though they are the original people. And so for me, it's like someone coming to me, it's like my son coming to me, I've got a son, and said, Dad, you know what, in the beginning, it's like, son, calm down, you weren't there. This is nothing to do. I have to tell you about the beginning, son. Okay, you don't tell me. And so this is what I've noticed as this thing is really backwards. So these people who Africans gave birth to, if you look at it chronologically, because Africans gave birth to all of humanity, how do the first people now not know how humanity came into being? Why did we have to wait for Arabs or Europeans to come and tell us who the beginning of humanity was, and it just so happened that the beginning of humanity had names that weren't African, cultures that weren't African, and people that weren't African. It's just like, but we understand that Africa is the root of humanity, so where is Africa in this story?
I think you see Africa in this story. Jesus himself ran to, or I would say ran, but God hid him in Egypt, and there's many historical facts about how Africa played a big part, and even till today, how it's playing a big part in spreading Christianity. I think my question, because we're saying Christianity, my question is Jesus for black people?
No.
No matter how many times I'm rebirthed on this earth, I want to come back black every time. And that's all boom, boom, boom. Hail Mary.
And you better keep fucking going.